Thank you, everyone. Thank you, UCSB. I am thrilled to be back here. Thrilled. Seriously, where else can you go to college and have egrets and cormorants sailing across the lagoon, condors flying up on the mountains, and best of all, lanes across the campus, not just for bicycles, but for skateboards. Seriously. Best of all, though, it is great to be here with all of you amazing people. Congratulations to all of you who are graduating. And I also want to say congratulations to those loving, devoted people who helped you get here today. All the moms, all the dads, all the grandparents, all the teachers, all the UCSB staff, all of your friends. You all deserve congratulations too. Well done. You are all fabulous. Now, as you know, all of us are storytellers. And if you folks like a good story as much as I do, then try this. Think of your life as a story, a one of which you get to be the author, nobody else. Now, my own life story has an especially bizarre and twisted plot. Lots of drama, excitement, surprises, humor, and struggle, I'll tell you. Growing up in Colorado, I always dreamed of becoming a writer. To live in a cabin somewhere high in the Rocky Mountains, writing books, that was my dream. And all the way through high school, college, and my first jobs, I would get up early and write. I'd get up before dawn sometimes to just write because I loved it. And finally, after college, I wrote my first novel, and as you heard, it had a totally terrific reception. I sent it out to 32 different publishers, and really quickly, I got 32 rejections. Now, rejections hurt. They don't feel good. There's no such thing as a warm and fuzzy rejection. But you know, there was one letter out of all those 32 that really touched my heart because it was just so deeply personal. It wasn't cruel like all the other ones that said, "Have you thought about becoming a plumber?" Or, please lose our address if you want to submit another book. All of those letters aside, this one was just so personal. I can still practically see it right in front of me. It really warmed my heart. Deeply personal. It said, "Dear Sir/Madam." Isn't that wonderful? And then they took the time to circle the word "Sir." Now, by the way, I was on rejection about 27 or 28 at that point, so that really was meaningful to me. Shows you where my head was at that point. Well, I have to tell you, the letter gets worse. After "Dear Sir/Madam," it said, "Your work of fiction/nonfiction, circle fiction, does not meet our publishing standards for our spring/fall publication list." And in that case, they circled both spring and fall, just to make sure I didn't miss the point. Anyway, so here I was, and I needed to try plan B. So I went into business in New York City, of all places, the last place I ever expected to be. And 10 years later, I was busy managing the company. But as busy as I was still getting up before dawn to write because it was my only time of real peace and creativity during the day. Then I'd get on my suit and go be the president of a public company. But you know, it went on for about a decade, and then I realized life is just too short not to try something you really love? And was I going to let those 32 rejections defeat me, or was I going to at least get up and try again? So I had the fun of walking in one day, giving a great report at our annual meeting to our investors and partners, and then pausing at the end and saying, oh, by the way, one more thing, I quit. Bye. You can imagine the reception that I got, all kinds of warm fuzzies, and seriously, they thought I was completely crazy. But I really knew it was something I had to try, whatever happened. Now, that was, I can tell you, 26 years ago and 31 books ago. And in that time, yeah, believe it, amazing. I'm so glad I had the chance to try again. And more good things have happened in that time than I could have ever guessed. All these wonderful things, bestsellers and international editions, and a movie being made at Disney, all of that. But the best part is meeting bright, engaged, wonderful, thoughtful, caring, courageous, compassionate young people like all of you. And I've had the opportunities to meet people of your caliber all around the world who are all connected by this invisible community of stories that we all share. Now, people often ask me, was it scary to change careers? And the answer is, sure, all change is scary. It always is. But think about it this way. The thought of trying and failing, which was very likely, wasn't nearly as frightening as the idea of growing old and coming to the end of my life and knowing that I had this thing I loved, writing, but I never really tried to make it come true. That idea was far more scary than any nightmare. Here's the thing. All we have is our time and our souls. So why not make the most of both of them? Your time, your soul, they're important. Give them that opportunity to be their very best. As Buddha said once, make of your life a light. Make of your life a light. Not just for yourself, but also for the wider world. One reason I like to write fantasy fiction is not because it's an escape from our world. Actually, it's a very powerful way to examine this world, to look at it more closely, but through the bent mirror of imagination. As I often say, good fiction must be true. I know that sounds paradoxical, but it must be true, not in a factual sense, but in an emotional and spiritual sense. That's why fantasy fiction, set in an imaginary world, can tell us so much about ourselves and our world. And I especially enjoy the kind of fantasy fiction that is in the hero's journey tradition, where you have a real, honest struggle by a character you care about and identify with, a struggle to rise above huge odds. Those stories are hopeful, and we need our hope more than ever today. Those stories are uplifting, but they are hope and uplift that is earned. It has to be authentic. It can't just be easy. That's what makes them truly heroic. Now, here's an example. In my books about Merlin's magical land of Finkyra that some of you might have read, or my new trilogy about Atlantis, that's a complete new retelling of the Atlantis myth, there is in both of those places growing peril Despite all the inspiring beauty, deep wisdom, and magical creatures of those worlds, there is great evil. Evil from people who are greedy, selfish, divisive, and mean-spirited. Fortunately, there is also great heroism from people who are courageous, loving, compassionate, and generous. The stakes in these worlds are high. The future is at risk. Now, by the way, do those fantasy worlds sound at all familiar? Do they remind you by chance of another world you know? You see, that's because this kind of story is more than just a page turner. They are also a metaphor for the place we call home. Whether it's this world or an imaginary one, the point is the same. If wisdom and love are going to have a chance to prevail, if the wondrous beauty of nature and wilderness is going to survive, if humanity, with all our diverse cultures and the great array of creatures, are going to live together in peace, then it's up to the people of those worlds, people of courage, perseverance, tolerance, and high ideals. And in our world, it's up to you. What you do matters. What you say matters. What you choose when you leave this wonderful campus matters. You know, despite all of our disagreements, we are all citizens here, citizens of our world. We all share common bonds with each other, with this great nation, and also with this beautiful planet. We all care about the future, and we must communicate better if we're going to create that future together. So let's talk to each other, and even more importantly, let's do a better job of listening to each other. Also, the environment has been made by some people who would profit by it into a highly political issue. But the truth is, clean air, clean water, healthy fisheries, wildlife, and parks benefit us all. These are not partisan issues. They are very important to all of us, now and for future generations. So in conclusion, let me just say this. Everything I have said today, everything, boils down to this. Remember that you are writing your own unique story. With every day you live and every choice you make. This is your story set in your world, involving your time and your soul, and you are the author. You get to write every chapter all the way to the end. So just make sure your story, like any good book or movie, has plenty of heart and humor in it, and some important ideas. Put all that together and you are going to have an incredibly meaningful life story. So now, go tell your story with courage. Tell it with passion, love, and gratitude. Make it the most awesome story you can. Thank you. Thank you very much.